Islam Makhachev versus Ian Machado Garry has officially been announced for UFC 330, and this is an intriguing matchup. This isn't just a championship versus contender matchup. This is a clash between arguably the most complete fighter in MMA and one of the smartest, young, well-rounded fighters in the sport. On one side, you've got Islam Makhachev, the pound-for-pound king, former lightweight champion and now UFC welterweight champion, riding one of the longest winning streaks in UFC history. On the other side, you've got Ian Machado Garry, the rising Irish contender who has worked his way into title contention through elite striking, showing well-roundedness, and he keeps looking better. Alright, he has that intelligent game plan and major wins over top contenders. This fight is basically elite grappling dominance versus elite movement and striking. So let's break it down. Let's talk about Islam. Makhachev has evolved from a dominant wrestler into one of the most complete mixed martial artists in the world. He isn't just a grappler anymore, he's dangerous everywhere. Islam's biggest weapon remains his wrestling. His ability to chain takedowns together is extraordinary. Even when opponents stop the first attempt, he immediately transitions to the second, third, fourth attack. Once he gets on top, escaping is an absolute nightmare, and that leads into his control. What separates Islam from many wrestlers is what happens after the takedown. He doesn't just hold positions, he advances positions, attacks submissions, and forces mistakes. And we do have to talk about his striking as well. Over the last few years, Islam has become a legitimate threat on the feet. His kicking game has improved, his boxing is massively improved, timing is much sharper than people give him credit for till this day. Now, when it comes to the fight IQ, Islam rarely loses positions, he rarely wastes energy, he rarely throws shots that are pointless, and almost always takes the safest path to victory. That level of discipline makes him incredibly difficult to beat. A quick look at Islam Makhachev's recent fight resume. Obviously, to become the welterweight champion, he defeated JDM in an absolutely dominant fashion. Before that, submitted Dustin Poirier, knocked out Alexander Volkanovski. Before that, had a win against Volkanovski, although that fight was pretty close, but he did win that fight. And before that, submitted Charles Oliveira. Of course, we got to talk about the potential matchup that almost happened with Arman Tsarukyan, but it got canceled, and then stepped in to beat Retano Moicano. So now let's talk about Ian Machado Garry. Garry has quietly become one of the most dangerous fighters in the welterweight division. To be honest, precision, movements, counters, he constantly is always looking forward to make reads throughout the fight. And that leads to his fight IQ. He does have good fight IQ. Like Islam, I wouldn't say at the same level, but it's there. One of Garry's most underrated strengths is his decision making. He doesn't force fight, he stays disciplined and follows a game plan. And we also have to talk about his grappling game. His takedown defense is elite. The biggest reason he's here, honestly speaking. Against elite competition, Garry has shown improved takedown defense and the ability to get back on his feet when opponents get him down. His win over Belal Muhammad showed that, right? Further boosted his title credentials because he's always been known as a well-rounded fighter. For example, when he fought Carlos Prates, when he fought MVP, he was making that a grapple-heavy fight. Again, leading to the fight IQ, stuck to the game plan, and took advantage of where they were lacking. But that's going to be really difficult with Islam Makhachev. When we take a look at Ian Garry's last 5 fights, defeated Belal Muhammad, Carlos Prates, Shavkat Rakhmonov, he lost to Shavkat. It was actually a competitive fight. It was so competitive that fans were actually attacking Shavkat for not being dominant. And I'm like, wait, Ian Garry is just that good. That wasn't Shavkat's fault. But yeah, before that, defeated Michael Venom Page, like I talked about, made it a heavy grappling fight when he realized he couldn't stand with MVP. But that's the fight IQ. Honestly speaking, this is one of the most fascinating styles that are clashing right now in MMA, especially with the upsets we've been seeing, like Strickland versus Hamza, Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje. This is another example. This fight is pretty much wrestling versus footwork. Islam wants to close the distance, get his hands on Garry, push him towards the cage, force grappling exchanges. Garry, on the other hand, wants the exact opposite. He wants open space, movement, angles, and that long range striking. And that's what he's going to try to keep doing. When it comes to the cage control, this may be the biggest battle of the entire fight. If Islam consistently pushes Garry to the fence, the fight starts favoring the champion. If Garry keeps the fight in open space, things get much more interesting. It's going to favor Garry for sure. But of course, when it comes to the grappling advantage, there's no question, right? Islam has the advantage on the ground. Although Garry has a longer reach, Islam Sambo is just phenomenal. But of course, as we've seen recently, there's no such thing as a mismatch anymore, right? There's no such thing as it's not going to be close. We also have to talk about the striking advantage. Garry takes that one, in my opinion, a little bit. I think he takes a little edge over Islam. Garry likely has the cleaner, pure striking. He's longer, like I said. He's more mobile, and he throws with less risk. But Islam's striking keeps improving, keeps looking better, right? And in my opinion, it's improved enough that Garry cannot simply ignore the threat of the counters. It's not going to be a wash. Let me put it this way. Islam is a better grappler compared to Garry than Garry a better striker compared to Islam. When it comes to the path to victory for Islam Makhachev, I mean, the strategy is straightforward. Don't let Garry get comfortable, right? He's going to try to force the clinch, push him to the fence, make him defend constantly. Stay on him, keep chasing him, and of course he's going to mix the striking with the grappling. The threat of takedowns opens striking opportunities for Islam always in all his fights. That's what happens every time, and it's the same strategy. It's the best strategy for Garry. The threat of striking opens takedowns, so vice versa, he can go any way he wants, honestly speaking. So Islam's ability to blend both is what makes him special. He's going to try to wear Garry down. Even if the takedowns don't immediately work, the constant pressure can drain energy over 5 rounds, and it absolutely will. If Islam executes the plan to drain him, to push him to the fence, to keep pressuring, a submission or dominant decision becomes very likely, just like he had against JDM. Now, the path to victory for Machado Garry is a little bit different. For Garry, the path is much narrower. He's gonna try to stay off the fence, right? He's going to keep staying on the back foot, but trying not to get cornered. And this is absolutely critical. The moment Islam starts trapping him against the cage, I mean, all the problems begin. That's the beginning of the end. So Garry is definitely going to try to use his movement like he always does. Circle constantly while striking, while throwing the leg kicks. He's going to try to force Islam to reset, and he's going to make him shoot from farther away, right? Because he's going to try to keep that distance. If he keeps jabbing or throwing the leg kicks, Islam will be tempted to shoot a takedown from a distance. Although, trusting Islam and his fight IQ, you might not see him do that. But Garry is going to keep trying to push entries. Every takedown attempt needs to cost Islam something. Knees, uppercuts, counters. Trust me, Garry has been training for this. Best believe. The guy has fight IQ. He knows how to pick a fight camp. He knows when he's lacking on something. So he's going to be training to land knees, uppercuts, counters for whenever Islam attempts a takedown. But that's easier said than done. Now, of course, the biggest advantage that Garry has against Islam is the range. He's going to try to win the long range battle. Garry is going to turn this into a kickboxing match. He's not going to try to go back and forth when it comes to wrestling or grappling with Islam. I don't think he's going to try to do that. I think he's going to try his best to keep it on the feet. The longer it stays standing, the better his chances become. So the biggest X factor for this fight is Garry's takedown defense. And that's the biggest X factor for most fights that Islam Makhachev is involved in. Many people believe Garry's movement and range movement give him a better chance, and the most recent challengers have proven that, right? Others see Islam's wrestling as simply too much to overcome. Now, that's the debate here. Islam that dominant of a wrestler that he's going to keep taking Garry down just like he did JDM? Because remember, a lot of people are talking about how JDM has this nice defensive grappling, which he does. But it was nothing for Islam. I mean, we're talking about someone who's an expert in Sambo, #1 pound for pound fighter, keeps looking dominant in all his fights. But at the end of the day, 2026 has been the year of upsets. I don't need to go through the list anymore. I'd never really count anyone out, but if I'm being honest, I'm gonna humble myself here a little bit. But of course, another major thing that Islam Makhachev has a major advantage in is the experience. Islam Makhachev has been fighting for belts, for championship titles for a while now. He's been fighting the best of the best in the sport. Now, granted, Ian Machado Garry had to earn this fight the hard way. Took so many fights. He's the definition of whoever, whenever, however. Doesn't matter where you are in the rankings, he takes the fight. And that's one thing I respect Ian Garry for. I don't really like him personally, but I don't care about that. The guy's a good fighter and he's a badass, right? He doesn't say no to fights. You will never hear Ian Garry talking about he's ducking. So he deserves this fight. But has he fought anyone close to the level of Islam Makhachev? I just feel like you can't compare their fight resume, and that's the biggest advantage that Islam has. Aside from the fight skill, the experience is something that Islam has. So with that being said, Ian Machado Garry is one of the toughest stylistic challenges available at welterweight. He's smart, he's disciplined, he's difficult to hit, but Islam Makhachev has constantly solved elite fighters for years. But it's fair to say this might be the most difficult fighter to solve at welterweight. So eventually, in my opinion, the wrestling pressure starts to add up, the cage gets smaller, the time keeps going on. 5 rounds is a lot of time. The movement will become harder for Garry, and Islam starts controlling where the fight takes place. So my prediction is Islam Makhachev wins by a submission in maybe round 4. Garry will have moments early. He likely will win some striking exchanges, maybe a round or 2, but over 5 rounds, Islam's grappling advantage would show. Now I'm humbling myself. I'm not saying Ian Machado Garry has absolutely no chance. Not saying that, even though I realize, yeah, in my graphics I am saying Ian Garry can't win, but that just shows how confident I am in Islam, right? I'm not saying he doesn't have a chance, especially with the way things have been going. But Islam is a different level, man. It's one thing for these guys to be losing in fights that you would think it's one-sided. It's another thing for the #1 pound-for-pound fighter to lose to a contender at welterweight. Although welterweight is the best division right now, it's the most stacked, the most skilled, I think this is a fight for Islam to win. But let me know what you think in the comments. Who do you think wins this fight? Do you think this is another upset for 2026? Let me know where you think I'm tripping at, and let me know what you agree with. All right, don't forget to like the video if you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you on the next one.